It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Welcome to the Sam Lesante Show for a special edition, folks. President Trump made a statement to the joint session of the Congress. And there, of course, was our Congressman Lou Barletta, along with everyone else. And it was quite an evening, as you know. Since then, of course, there's a lot of comments coming from that. Looks like the reviews have been that it was probably one of the best speeches he made. That's what we're hearing so far. But Congressman Barletta joins me via phone from his office in Washington. Congressman, thanks for coming on the show.
Good to talk to you, Sam.
Well, needless to say, it was probably an exciting evening for you last night, correct?
Well, it was. I mean, I've been listening to the presidential addresses and the State of the Unions since I got here, and I could tell you, I couldn't have been any more excited last night. It was music to my ears. Many of the things that President Trump talked about is exactly why I came here.
Let's look at some of the things that he said, and maybe okay. Well, listen, let me ask you this. Behind the scenes, before the speech, what are you guys, the women of Congress, men and women of Congress, are you prepared for this? Do you have any pre-knowledge of what he's going to talk about? Does Ryan give you any upfront information?
No, we're not. His speech is embargoed, and so we do not have any. We don't know what he's going to talk about. There's rumors that swirl around what he may address, and there's a lot of excitement building up to it in the entire city of Washington. I mean, even if you outside of the Capitol here, you can just see it, and especially the security presence is like nothing I've ever seen before. Literally. Probably the safest place in the world is when the president's given this speech in front of a joint session of Congress with the Supreme Court sitting there as well. So you can imagine what the security was like, and a lot of excitement. And each member gets to bring a guest. We get to bring one guest to the State of the Union. And last night I brought Sonny Patel, Hazleton businessman, as my guest, and I thought he was a good example, especially for this president and his speech. Sonny came from India as an immigrant and is a successful business person, and talks a lot about how he understands what this president wants to do for America. So there was a lot of excitement leading up to it.
Okay, so getting to the actual, because what I'm trying to get across here, as we always try to do, Lou, is get the facts. All right, instead of being, I'm a Republican or a Democrat. So coming to the health care issue, the Obamacare, recently there has been a protest. Congressman Cartwright and Senator Casey were at a protest, I guess, a few weeks ago. I understand. I didn't see it. But evidently they were protesting Obamacare, that they feel that it would be wrong to eliminate Obamacare. Now, this morning, Governor Wolf made a statement, and let me read some of it. Probably you may have received this already. Governor Wolf released the following statement on the president's speech to a joint session. Here's what he said. The president's address confirmed his plan to repeal the Affordable Care Act and put in place a replacement that will hurt millions of Pennsylvania's seniors, families, and local economies. Repealing the ACA and cutting Medicare would leave millions of Pennsylvanians without health care, cause seniors to lose homes and nursing care, and force small and rural hospitals in Pennsylvania to lay doctors and nurses off and close their doors. And then he says, furthermore, while I'm encouraged by the president's plan to invest in infrastructure, we need additional details to make sure any plan creates jobs in Pennsylvania and rebuilds our roads, bridges, public transit, and communities. Now, how do you respond to that?
Sam, it's amazing when somebody criticizes something they haven't even seen yet. He hasn't seen the replacement plan to Obamacare. He has no idea exactly what it's going to do, but yet he's already critical of it and wants to save a plan that is going to collapse on its own. if we do nothing, all the people that he's talking about that are so happy with Obamacare will have no insurance. Obamacare cannot survive. It is going to literally implode on its own if we don't do something to save it. Not to mention all the people who now have health insurance on Obamacare that he talks about, not to mention the millions and millions and millions of Americans who have lost their health insurance, have lost their doctors, have lost their health care plan, have watched their premiums double and skyrocket, have watched their out-of-pocket costs become so expensive that they can no longer even afford to go to the doctor. Not to mention the people who are on Obamacare who have come to my office and have talked to us about the fact that they can't afford it. Now they have a health care insurance that sometimes some of them their premiums were $10,000. They can't afford it. 4.7 million Americans have lost their health care plan since 2014. Who did nothing wrong, who were perfectly happy with their doctor and their health care insurance, have lost it. 10,000 businesses have closed because of Obamacare. There was an election in November, and this was on the ballot. This was one of the main issues of what President Trump talked about, and governors and state legislators and members of Congress need to understand the American people wanted something different. It just wasn't going to work.
Well, for the governor of Pennsylvania to come out with a statement like this, don't you think, here again, I don't know who his advisors are, because if it's true, it certainly scares a lot of seniors, and it certainly, especially I've been pushing for seniors since day one. Hopefully, this is not true, okay, that they will be losing, their homes and millions of people will now not have health care. Where is the current status right now? I mean, you hear all these rumors that 22 million people will lose health care, that there really is nothing in place, or there is, but the Republicans are fighting also as well, and there's all this turmoil. Of course, you're hearing this from the liberal press, but however, is any of this true, and will people in Pennsylvania lose their jobs and seniors hurt by this repeal?
Well, they will if we don't do something to fix the mess, as President Trump calls it, the disaster called Obamacare. If we don't fix it, yes, they will. The fact of the matter is that the replacement that we are working on that will replace and repeal Obamacare will make sure that all people have coverage, that we don't leave anybody behind. Even people with pre-existing conditions will have health insurance. People that are interested in young people staying on till they're 26 will have coverage. But Sam, who believes that the government is better to run your health care and knows better about what doctors you should see and what health care plan you can have? I mean, remember they were penalizing companies who were giving insurance coverage that was too good, so you paid a penalty. Who does that? So the plan we're working on will put you back in charge, where you can pick the doctor you want, you can pick the plan you want, and we're going to make it affordable. We're going to let people shop. We're going to let competition drive down prices. But we're going to put the people back in charge of their health care plan, not bureaucrats here in Washington who have proven that they can't get it right because the plan Obamacare was simply costing people their jobs, costing them their health insurance, and was going to collapse in the end anyway. So no, the people that are making these claims, it's unfair that they're making these claims. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're not here working on this plan. We're going to make sure people have affordable health care plan. Nobody will lose their insurance, and we're going to put the patient back in charge of their health care and their doctors.
What's this thing here about these consequences are only made worse by the plan to further cut Medicaid coverage for kids, seniors, and the disabled? What's that all about? What's that statement about?
So Sam, some states were allowed to expand Medicaid, so the money that the states were given to, the money the federal government was given to the states for Medicaid, they expanded it to include more people. and that's called the Medicaid expansion. So now there's a concern that, with the replacement that we're working on, that those people now will be. I mean, they're trying to find something wrong, Sam. Yes. You have a car that has 3 wheels on it that's fallen out. The mirrors are hanging down. It's smoking out of the radiator, and they're trying to find something wrong with the ride that you want to give them to replace that with. That's not true either. Many of the ideas that we're working on are going to say, listen, we're going to make sure, but the states have to police it themselves to weed out the fraud and the waste, because we know anytime you expand something like that, people are able to take advantage of it, and the federal government is telling the states, you need to be in charge and police this yourself. So we're going to make sure that everybody that has coverage will have coverage, but it'll be affordable. And again, the government won't be running it. It'll be put back into the private, the hands of Americans, and let them shop and let's just drive down the cost. That's what the whole problem was the cost of health care, and we have ways that we're going to drive down the cost, but we're going to put people back in charge and not politicians here in Washington. Well, see, Sam, once they control your health care, then they control you. And that's the problem. That's what happens in socialism and socialist countries, when the government now controls everything. They control where you can work, what you can eat, what you can do, what doctors you can go see, and we know the free market works, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so the repeal, okay, for the sake of the seniors that are watching the program today, because certainly this will be front page on all the liberal newspapers, that Wolf says that they're going to cut Medicare, that's going to hurt seniors, etc. And once again, these people become scared, and that's why they're at these protests, Lou, because they're, I would be scared too. If the governor is coming out and saying this, where does he get his information from? Does he have an inside pull with President Trump or the Congress? I do not know. But when I see stuff like this, this is something that's a little disturbing to me.
I don't think the governor is getting any inside information more than what the people who are actually working on it here are doing. And they lost an election in November, Sam, and they haven't stopped. They haven't let it go since. It's been one thing after another. Whatever they can do, they don't care if they scare people. I mean, last night I watched members of Congress refuse to stand up to honor the Navy SEAL who was killed for his country, while his wife sat there in the audience, and I watched members of Congress to refuse to stand up to honor that life. There are some people, unfortunately, are just not going to let this go. And I think the president's message last night was to put your party aside, and the American people want us to work together, and that's what they want. That's what they voted for. There are some that are not going to, and whether it's a governor or whether it's somebody here in Congress, that's unfortunate, because the American people want us to work together. And the president last night asked us to. He asked us to please work together so that we can solve these problems. He said it's time for small thinking is behind us. And these politicians that won't let it go, Sam, I believe the American people have taken their government back again. And I don't believe their days in public office will be that long.
Well,
I think the American people want us to work together.
Well, I think you're right. I think when people realize that when now here again, I'm only based on what you're saying. When people read this from Governor Wolf, who is a Democrat, and when they see Congressman Cartwright and Senator Casey, who are against repealing the Obamacare. But however, those are people who have been affected by Obamacare. Now, before I go to break, you mentioned something about farmers in the state of Pennsylvania. This is Governor Wolf's state. What was the story about their insurance, as you said, Lou?
Sure. So agriculture is number one industry in Pennsylvania. So you would think that would be a big concern here in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Farm Bureau, the Pennsylvania farmers were able to join an association through the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau to go get their health care, their health insurance. So the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau had their own association where the Pennsylvania farmers could get their health insurance through that association. Because farmers don't go to the doctors for scrapes and little cuts and minor minor illnesses, they were able to get an unbelievably affordable rate because they pulled together. The Pennsylvania Farm Bureau went out and administered it, and this served the Pennsylvania farmers very, very well. Under Obamacare, that no longer existed. The Pennsylvania farmers could not go to the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau Association alone and just keep their own poll. They were forced. I don't know how anyone thinks this is good governance. They were forced to have to join a much larger pool of people who did not take care of themselves or did not use their policies the same way that the farmers did. Because of that, their insurance premiums skyrocketed, and it has hurt Pennsylvania farmers across the states. That's some of the damages that Obamacare did that we don't hear about, those stories. All the Pennsylvania farmers that have been hurt, how many other people who have been hurt and been forced out of their plans into a much more expensive plan. So when they tell you, when they're talking about those that now have health insurance who didn't, they leave out all the people who did have health insurance who were very happy, who no longer have the plans that they have, and it's costing them more money, and many times they don't even have insurance anymore.
Well, we didn't hear anything from the governor on that. I mean, I didn't remember hearing him being upset about that. However, do you think this statement that he made was ill-advised? That, before he starts scaring the people in Pennsylvania, I know they're a nervous wreck. All the Democrats are nervous because the people have responded. As you said in November, Pennsylvania went for Trump, and there's reasons for that. But the point is, working together, I sort of wonder why he would make this statement that he did to scare everyone after what they heard last night without knowing the facts. Am I correct in saying that, or am I off track here?
His statement was not only ill-advised, Sam, it was inaccurate. And that's unfortunate because the people it scares are senior citizens, and aren't we sick and tired of that, Sam? Haven't they been doing this for way too long now? Isn't this why the American people elected somebody who's not a politician? Because they're tired of politicians using, whether it's senior citizens or someone else, to scare them, just so that they could get themselves elected again.
Yeah, well, that's
or to shoot down something else that's Obamacare wasn't working. So why would you not want to say, hey, listen, this wasn't my idea, but we got to do what's right for the American people? Instead, he doesn't even know. He has no clue what we're working on, what we're going to do, what we're going to pass. And for him to make statements like that it's ill-advised and inaccurate.
Well, that's why I wanted you to be on the show today. Fortunately, I will be going to airing this show throughout northeastern Pennsylvania, but it will only be seen in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, etc., where this kind of rhetoric that the governor put out is ill-advised and incorrect. Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Barletta via phone in his office. On a personal note, let me just tell you this, okay? For those of you, before I go into that, Congressman Barletta, can you tell me that the seniors and the kids and families will be in good shape? They have nothing to be worried about or concerned about?
Absolutely, Sam. That's exactly why we're doing what we're doing, because we do have a better way of lowering costs for health insurance, and that is, to allow people to allow competition to drive down the price. Imagine you now having the ability. I mean, some places, Sam, they only have one or two choices. That's it. The health insurance, the health providers, insurance providers have left. They don't even want to be part of this anymore. So now you're forced to go to one or two providers, and how is that going to drive down prices? Imagine you being able to pick up the phone like Geico and call around the country to be able to shop for a health care plan that is affordable to you and allow competition to drive down the price. There's so many things that we're going to do to make health care more affordable, but we're not going to force people into doing things. The government shouldn't be forcing anyone into doing it. What we should do is to try to provide health care that is affordable so that businesses can offer it to their employees again. They could cover them again. You shouldn't be penalized because you want a good plan, and you shouldn't force and mandate, whether it's young people to try to buy insurance or fine them if they don't. That obviously wasn't going to work. So yes, the health care plan, what we're going to replace Obamacare, which is failing and will fail, is going to be something that will be much more affordable, and people will have better health care because of it.
So this particular press release, folks, that Governor Wolf put in is inaccurate and without any, evidently not any homework done on their part, but I think political. Now remember, this is my personal note, here's a Governor Wolf, okay, that made this statement, all right? Now, for those of you who have access to computers, I would ask you to Google a 20-week-old baby, unborn baby, and see what you see when they show you that ultrasound. Now, the state of Pennsylvania, thanks to people like Representative Knowles and Toohill, etc., said that they wanted to move the abortions from 24 weeks to 20 weeks. Here's what one of the statements that Governor Wolf said when they wanted to do this, folks. Now, the reason I say look at 20 weeks, you will see little hands, little legs, you'll see a baby there, not etc. But Governor Wolf said, when they said they wanted to move it from 24 weeks to 20 weeks, he said it was radical and unconstitutional. Now, if there's anything radical about pulling little arms and legs apart, I have no idea. But this is what our governor in the state of Pennsylvania said about that particular thing. Could you imagine what else is happening, such as this information, this press release, which again, according to Congressman Barletta, is inaccurate? We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show Special Edition, folks. Remember, SSPTV.com, you can watch all of our shows. I'm speaking to Congressman Lou Barletta from the 11th Congressional District via phone in his office, and we're talking about the remarks that President Trump made to the joint session last night. And before this, I read the statement that Governor Wolf made about this particular health care, and it's totally ill-advised and totally inaccurate. We'll see how the press handles that. Lou, talking about immigration, here again we have, you see the press, the liberal press showing families being broken apart. We don't want to take anybody. We saw last night, or when President Trump saw the people who were killed by illegals, etc. Are we cleaning out everybody? Are we breaking families up? I know some Catholic priests are concerned that we don't have compassion, etc. Where are we at with this immigration situation?
Well, Sam, the president's doing exactly what he said he's going to do. He's going to throw out of the country the people who are here illegally, who have committed crimes. So when anyone wants to talk about families being torn apart and broken up, there's nothing worse than anybody, if you've ever had an opportunity to sit down with somebody who's lost a loved one who was killed by somebody who was in the country illegally. What about those families? What about those families that will never be united again, who lose sons or daughters or brothers or sisters or mothers or fathers or friends, loved ones? What about all those victims? And I couldn't be more proud than last night when President Trump announced that he was starting a new office called Voice, and it was about the victims of illegal crimes that have been committed against American people here, and it will help those families and the victims of these crimes. Nobody ever talks about that. Sam, this has been very special, very important to me back to 2006 when I was mayor of Hazleton, and Derek Kishline was killed, 29-year-old city man, father of 3 young children, and his parents wanted to know, why is their son gone? And he was killed by somebody who should not have been in this country. I had to spend time with Mr. and Mrs. Snyder, their daughter Carly, 20 years old, killed by an illegal alien who had been arrested and left go from Houston, which was a sanctuary city. The father, as he told me the story, Sam, his daughter was stabbed 37 times. She died, she bled to death on the kitchen floor. He cried when he told me this. I have never forgotten that story. finally, we have a president who recognizes, let's start standing up for the victims of these crimes. Let's not have the bleeding hearts about always about the person who knowingly came into this country illegally. I understand why you would want to. It's a great country. We have a way to do it. We're not saying you can't. We have a way to do it. But when people have lost their loved ones because of crimes, it's about time that we start standing up and taking care and recognizing those people.
To paraphrase something that you said on my show a while back is that if what he's doing with people coming in and putting restrictions, I said if we had 100 apples, if I had a bushel of apples here with 100 apples in, and I would tell you that 98 of those apples are absolutely beautiful, delicious, but 2 of them are poisonous, will kill you. Would you take an apple?
Absolutely not. And he brought up another good point, that our immigration system in America should benefit America. That's the reason you have it, is to benefit America, rather than flood the country with people who are going to take the lower paying jobs. Who does that hurt, Sam? That doesn't hurt people who have good jobs. That hurts people who needed those jobs. Many times it's immigrants themselves, immigrants who are here, who lose their job to somebody who came here illegally. And so the people that we allow into the country illegally, not illegally, legally, should be people that could benefit this country, who will not need welfare, who will not need government assistance, who will not be a tax or a burden on the American people, but rather help and allow the immigrants who are here to earn more money, to get a better job so that they can take care of their families. This is a president that gets it, and as I said, I am going to continue to work with him on these ideas of immigration. It's been really how I got to Congress, and finally, Sam, after 6 years, I'm going to have my fingerprints on some of this stuff.
Very quickly, is there turmoil in the Republican Party about this Obamacare? Is there turmoil? Some Republicans are not going to be supporting the president.
No, absolutely not. The fact is, the arguments are here because of all the good ideas people have, and that's a great position to be in. So the fact that we have different ideas is good, because they're all good arguments to do how we can give the American people a health care that's going to take care of them. So no, that's, again, the media has been so unfair to this president. Every single day, Sam, there's a new end of the world by something that this president is doing. And last night, I think we saw one of the better presidential addresses that have ever been given in Washington.
Well, this is what I even think some people from CNN mentioned that. I guess that broke their hearts. But, Lou, before I let you go, I know you have a slew of meetings today. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me. But I'm hoping, folks, that when you see this kind of rhetoric that comes from the governor of the state of Pennsylvania, ill-advised, inaccurate, but yet wants to scare my friends, you seniors out there, wants to scare everybody. And this is the same nonsense, and that's why I think President Trump says it's fake news. It really is fake news. Congressman, thank you very much. I know you have a busy day, and if we need you again, I'm sure you'll be responding. Anything else you want to say in closing? I got 10 seconds.
No, all I want to say is, the American people have reason to be hopeful. The president talked about bringing back coal again, taking care of our coal miners, taking care of our veterans, taking care of the military, and most of all, taking care of our seniors. As I said, it was music to my ears, and I'm very excited about what the next 4 years will look like.
Thank you, Congressman. Folks, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.